Welcome back. You got Will and I Man here from the Block Runner, and today we're going to be talking about the Vibeathon.
It's here, dude.
Finally.
Yeah, we've been talking about it in the podcast, the last couple of them, I think.
Yeah, so definitely watch the podcast because we go pretty deep into what's happening with the Vibeathon and NAT.FUN.
Yeah, the thesis around why, a vibe contest, if you will, or a Vibeathon. I mean, it seemed like the most obvious naming for this thing, this type of event.
Yeah, so instead of a hackathon, it's a Vibeathon.
Yeah, so what do you mean by a vibe, dude?
It's called a Vibe Studio just because when you're talking to your agent or you're interfacing with Claude Code or any of these typical interfaces that we've seen today, you're sort of just vibing, and that's why they call it vibe coding.
Right.
So Vibeathon because...
Yeah, it's the new word of the decade, I guess. Maybe potentially this century, depending on how...
Defines humanity now.
Yeah, it's definitely a new mode of human intent and activity here on Earth. We're all just collectively vibing. I guess we've always been doing that, but it's been more difficult to translate the vibe into actual
code.
productivity of things. But because AI is really streamlined that, frequency of vibe to output of thing.
Yeah.
And it's put all that super ability into all of our hands. It's let's weaponize that. And
right.
I don't know. Some people like to say, what do they say? Create at the speed of thought.
Yeah.
You hate that, don't you?
I do hate it.
I think it has a decent ring to it because it's kind of true. It's almost true. You can't create at the speed of thought.
Not yet. Not until you get a Neuralink.
Right. You're getting pretty close though. And so the act of vibing is that, I guess, process, right?
Yeah, and so let's go through a little bit of a journey right now, and let's talk about why we're doing this. So when we launched NAT.FUN, we knew that one of the ways to reach attention in the crypto economy is to launch a token that does relatively well, where people make some money, and it breaches the zeitgeist of a community, specifically Solana. And so we needed the token to do well, and so we thought, it's okay, on the first token... And I'll bring it up here. On the first token, let's do a Vibeathon. So this has been brewing since for a while. So let's do a Vibeathon where we get the creators out there in the ecosystem to vibe a collection.
Right.
And all this process and all this thinking and sort of designing this, a successful token launch was sort of premeditated. But we never even talked about it because we didn't want what happened with the first launch of the token to occur, which was when we launched this token, someone bought 80% of the supply. So if we go to holders and I think this individual bought 82% of the supply.
Yeah, which right now says 0. That's because they've been spread out, the tokens.
They distributed to token holders or
hundreds of other wallets. Who knows?
Yeah.
But the point is, the real issue is, because that happens all the time in bonding curve launches. But in our case, there's a unique differentiator to our launch process. It's that we're distributing, NFTs to holders of these tokens whenever they graduate. Right.
That's right. So in the case here, this guy bought 82% of the fungible tokens, and when it graduated, they received 82% of the blocks. And so what do the blocks look like? Well, if we go click on this show block pad.
There he is, dude.
That's, let me get rid of this.
That's full domination if I ever seen it.
Yeah.
So obviously this is not ideal, right? If you're trying to demonstrate, this whole launch process has a new mechanism of NFT, distribution. This is not what you want to see.
No.
Right? This is not the experience that's going to attract creators and, NFT communities.
Yeah, from a tokenomics standpoint, this is not good. But what's worse than that is that there were only about 10 people who held UNATs.
Right.
About 10. And so there was only 10 people that potentially could have gone through the unboxing experience, which most on the platform have not gone through. However, Big Noodle did graduate, and there were people who actually did go through that unboxing experience. So, and so what that looks like is they revealed their NFTs. And so in this case, these are ordinals. So this is what it looks like when art is actually revealed.
Yeah, but there's an actual unboxing animation reveal process is kind of what we're
Correct.
talking about. What we're hoping, people will come to identify as a unique add-on to the token launch experience, right? Because again, people are very used to pumped out fun and their derivative clones.
Yeah.
You can launch a shitter on Solana basically, and you can watch it go from nothing to something over time, and then in most cases back to nothing.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, a process missing within that experience was the distribution, delivery of NFTs into your possession, and then the component that we think has like the most potential for market allure. It's the unveiling, unboxing,
Yes.
whatever, right? This is the stuff that's got the whole Pokemon collector universe like so enamored at the moment, right? It's like the experience of purchasing a pack and then unboxing it, seeing what you got. You want to translate that to the NFT realm once again, and that's one of the many premises behind the platform.
Yeah.
Right.
So to dig deep into the NAT supply, so the non-arbitrary token supply, it's basically like 4 trillion here. And the unique non-arbitrary token, which is the NFTs, there's 10,080. So these are non-arbitrary values. And so again, when this thing launched, there were only about 10, it took about 10 people to graduate this thing. And one of them had 80%. And so basically you had 8,000 UNAT supply. And so, so again, like that's not good. So we want to relaunch this thing, but there's been an update. And so I think this launched like May 27th. And just by sheer luck, there was an update by Meteora, which is the technology we're using. Let me kind of zoom in here. It says DBC, so this is on June 2nd. It says DBC program update containing transfer hook and restricted mint authority is live, and some tech details here. So clearly this isn't obvious as to like what this is, but
Yeah.
it's probably the single most important update in the context of what we are doing. So this transfer hook, namely, is like the big deal here. So what does this do? So just like I said earlier here, someone bought 80% of the supply. What a transfer hook does, it prevents someone from basically buying 80% of the supply. The way that it does that is that as a creator, as a launcher, you can set a max purchase amount per wallet address.
Yeah.
And so in this case, we would set it at, let's say, for the next token launch, we would set it at 1%. So the max percentage supply you could buy is 1%. And so if you're early on the curve, that 1% is a lot cheaper. If you're at the end of the curve, it's a little bit more expensive. But once it graduates at 100K, then these NFTs will get distributed, and then the Vibathon would be going on for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so then anybody who can vibe code either through an agent, through Claude Code, ChatGPT, or our onboard AI tool here in the Vibe Studio can submit their own collection for this.
Yeah.
So instead of us doing it, we want the community to do it.
Yeah, I think originally we wanted that to be the case as well. Like we would eventually host a Vibe competition.
Yeah.
And the idea is to source like kind of like a honeypot or a bounty in this case, for the community to essentially vote on and decide who generated the best vibe that represents this collection, right? We kind of set the wheels in motion with like a little bit of like a brand identity, I guess. That's what this little 3-eyed smiley character is.
Yeah.
To represent DMT as like an ethos, as a whatever, right? Like this is a feel. This is the vibe I get whenever we're talking about DMT. It's very, trippy.
Yeah.
The rabbit hole goes deep. But that's all this is. It's just like some representation. Obviously, what you're scrolling through isn't like a viable collection.
No, definitely not.
You don't want 10,080 of these. There's just nothing attractive about that.
Correct.
So it's like, let's activate the community and let's put out there like a pot, and let's get a little bit of like a spectacle going. And the reason why it's an interesting spectacle is because it's all centered around the ability for people to produce art, whether through your own native ability or through AI, right? And we haven't really seen that in crypto in years. At least like an emphasis around that.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Vibathon will be happening for 2 weeks, and you mentioned a critical thing. The way you create this stuff can be any number of ways, But the only restriction is in order to submit something, it needs to ultimately go through the Vibe Studio. The reason that is because the Vibe Studio has a kind of like a setup way for it to be compatible with our site. So say, for example, since these are real NFTs, they don't have any filters because
Right.
no one actually created any art for this. And again, this first token launch, we intended to do a Vibathon, but it doesn't make sense to do a Vibathon for this token when there's 10 NFT holders.
Right.
Right. That doesn't make any sense. So let's just relaunch this thing with a better distribution, run it again. And if you submit your art through the Vibathon, then and go through the process of submission, the AI on board will generate the collection, the traits, and everything will be filterable through this like filter section on the secondary platform here. And so that's the only restriction. So you can use any agent, you can use Hermes, OpenClaw, Claude Code, anything that that you typically would use for just like research and development. Use that, and the way you do that, I'll show you, is you go to your profile, make sure that you have your socials connected, and then create an API key. So let me zoom in here, and then send this API key to your agent. And I would recommend not to send it directly to the agent, because what happens is that API key is exposed to, let's say you're using Claude, it's exposed to Claude, right? And they keep all of your information.
Okay.
So it's sort of like security protocol here. So don't send it directly to your agent. Ask your agent, how do you want me to deliver the API key? And the agent will tell you. So once you do that, all you do is you copy that API key and submit it through however your agent wants it to be submitted. And then you look at these docs here, and these are the entire set of all the API endpoints that you can use. You can copy the skill, send it to your agent, or copy this entire list and send it to your agent. But whichever one you use, the agent will have full breadth and knowledge on how to actually develop a collection for this Vibathon, or your own collection if you decide to launch on NAT.FUN.
And you've tested this process?
Yes, I sure have. I sure have.
It all works swimmingly?
Yeah, so I'll show you an example. So I can go to my Vibes here, and there's one called Aliens. So I click on Vibe Studio, and these are my aliens.
Very timely, very in fashion.
Right. So
I don't know if you've seen the movie yet. What's it called?
Disclosure Day?
Have you seen that?
I have not seen it, no.
That wasn't inspiration?
You know what? The UFOs that
The phenomena?
Yeah, that the United States have been disclosing.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly that was a contributing factor here, because
It's definitely a vibe.
yeah.
You definitely captured a vibe for sure.
Yeah, they got their lightsaber here and everything.
So I see some. Oh, never mind. This one's just short.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through. So clearly the feet here are kind of disconnected. So I'll show you how to fix that.
Yeah, there's positioning problems, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, but
this is part of it, right? So just so people understand, it's like, you know, if you're not familiar with how AI vibing works, it's not like a one-shot experience, right? It's like it's a process of communicating with an AI consultant, if you will.
Yeah.
They're going to be prompting you more than you prompting it. It's going to be asking you a ton of questions.
Yep.
Because it needs to truly understand, like, you know, what it is you want, right? And typically we're not really good at giving that level of detail of direction. Right. Like in one shot.
Yeah, because really you as a human, you don't necessarily know the boundaries of what the studio can do. So the best way to do it is give your agent the docs, use the skill, and ask the agent, okay, I want to create a collection on, some dogs, right? And so you ask the agent, it's like, how should we build this collection? And it'll basically give you a questionnaire on like what could be built. And then you just answer the questions and you just vibe design this entire collection. Okay. And so I'll give you an example. So here, what I did was there was a background that didn't have any animations, and I asked my agent to, give me an animation for a background. And so that's what you're seeing here with these little like moving stars here. And every single one has that same background, but also the shoes are kind of disconnected. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch over to Telegram, that's my agent on Telegram. And I'm going to tell it, it's like the shoes are too far apart from the body. So let's fix that. So what I'm going to do here's my agent here. And I'm going to say the shoes on Vibe, what is this? I think it's Vibe 128. Vibe 128 are too far apart from the alien.
You really need some like vibe music or something, dude.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Like some techno.
That's right. Some deep house, dude.
Yeah.
You know, something that really, I don't know, spices up the vibe experience in itself, you know?
Yeah.
'Cause I'm trying to imagine, it's like, if you're live streaming this, you know, how can we make this more engaging?
Yeah. So now the agent responds, let me pull the full editor file for Vibe 128 so I can see how the shoes are drawn.
Okay.
And so once you give it some time, it will actually edit these shoes. So, and it does it in real time too. It's kind of cool to watch.
So is this a Hermes bot you're using?
So this one is OpenClaw.
Okay.
I have a Hermes bot enabled, and Hermes is there more like a wingman because the OpenClaw
it knows you better, right?
it knows me better, but it tends to break more often.
Oh, how disappointing, dude.
Yeah, it's really annoying. So what I do is I say, hey, Hermes, OpenClaw is broken. Can you fix? And after a few minutes, it fixes it, and then we're back in order.
So you can't just like port over the soul of your OpenClaw to this Hermes?
Technically, you can, yes. I just haven't done so just because I do want two separate agents.
You can't just admit you've formed a love bond with your OpenClaw, dude. That's really what it is. You just can't put it to death like that.
Well, I put in a lot of work, actually.
Oh, I know you did.
If you look at my Mac Mini, there's a tons of files.
That's called a relationship, dude. That's exactly why we're so hard to disconnect. You put in all that like relationship work.
Yeah,
like,
sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, you can't just walk away from that.
It's the same thing with crypto, dude.
Same thing with AI.
Yeah. So, all right. So it says I can put the shoes are spacing by half, and said, let me check the body widths, and I think it's still working. And then eventually the AI will fix the shoes and either position the body lower or something, right? And so with enough time, this is essentially what I did. I was like, let's create an alien collection, and I told it to specifically add traits to it so that when people unbox it, you can see what the traits kind of look like. So this one has a background of an aura. It has a gold halo, has a giant body. The skin is lavender. So this is what's considered a giant body. And let's see.
Definitely has a big head. Yeah, it looks definitely smaller.
Yeah, so it's a lot smaller. So it has some visors. And let's see, this one particularly has the ember ring. The body slim, skin is sunfire. It has a battle armor.
So how do you generate this array of different characteristics? Like, is it like every collection has the same traits, or is it dynamic? Like you can
literally come up with infinite amount of traits, right? If you wanted to,
if you wanted to, yeah.
Because on NAT.FUN, you could actually launch a million NFT collection.
It's true. I mean, you could do that anywhere, but it's kind of madness to even attempt.
Yeah.
That's why the meta is typically 10K or lower.
Yeah.
But in the non-arbitrary universe case, there's close to 1 million Bitcoin blocks in existence. So that is like your top end range of a NFT collection that you can distribute to token holders, right?
Yeah.
Very bold of you, because what that would do would increase the market threshold of a block out or graduation to 1 million, I think.
That's right. That's right.
Which right now it's at 100K. So
yeah.
One day, somebody's going to take that bold leap of effort and try and do a full-scale blockout on NAT.FUN. It should be interesting because, it's going to take a lot more capital and attention requirement to achieve a blockout, therefore distribute all those blocks.
Right. Yeah, and so if you're going to do a million collection, you're going to want a lot of traits.
Yeah, so that they don't all look too similar, right?
Yeah.
Because there will be a lot of, like, trait similarity. Yeah, so you got to vary the genetic code, if you will, quite a bit to make like enough individuality.
Yeah. And then you literally tell the AI is like, okay, you could say, I want a gold crown, but I want this gold crown to occur less than 1% of the time.
Right.
And it will find a pattern within Bitcoin that occurs less than 1% of the time for your collection.
Right.
and it'll assign that crown to that particular data point on Bitcoin. So if you get the block that has that pattern, you get the crown on your character.
And all that's written in the code itself.
It's in the code. That's correct.
You never really even have to look at it, which is crazy.
Yeah. All right, so let me hit refresh here to see if it made an update. No, not yet.
So what did you tell it to do?
So I'm telling it to kind of fix the spacing between the shoes here and the body. And so it's still working on it. It says missing background PNGs won't block rendering, building the harness now. So it's still working on it. But essentially that is the experience, is that you could, and right now these are SVGs, so these are kind of like primitive shapes. But you can actually use GPT 1.5, which is from OpenAI, and you can generate image layers with transparent backgrounds where you could use the image layers as your layers for your art collection. So now you could, it's really images based collections versus SVG based.
Okay.
And then eventually we'll support 3D models and support P5.js. So different sort of tech stacks to enable interactivity and other ways to build collections.
Okay, interesting. Let's see.
Same result. So now let me find the correct update endpoint. Okay, so it's still making the change. Let me refresh.
There's no way to like crack a whip here, dude. Get it to move faster.
Yeah, you don't tell Claude what to do.
I mean, I would hope so.
Well, yeah, you don't tell Claude to move faster because then it just actually doesn't do it.
Wow, dude. That's fake advertising then.
Yeah. So let's
I thought these were supreme beings. But I guess that is kind of like alpha.
yeah, they have their
They
own
may not do what they're told.
They have their own personalities. It's kind of interesting.
That's right.
So yeah, this particular guy has one eye and a staff, and I'm going to be submitting my own vibe.
Are you?
Yeah, it's not going to be this one. I'm going to try to be a little bit more ambitious in this and try to submit like a more interactive collection.
Okay. Well, that means you plus whoever else is watching this, and yeah, inform the world if you can. You don't have to. I guess that would kind of like spread the participant pool and therefore lower your chances of winning. But
Well, it depends how you look at it, right?
Yeah.
The more people who submit, the bigger
that's true. The pot will become.
Exactly.
Because yeah, that is an important like note to add on here. It's the bounty is set at 10,000 USD.
Exactly.
At least initially. Like that is the initial get. Now once this video goes out, there will be a token launched, right?
Yeah.
For this collection. We're not sure if it's going to be called DMT or not, but
yeah, we'll see.
It will be in the description probably of this video, right? Like the actual contract address of the token.
Yes, correct.
So that means, it's a live token trading on Solana. And as that's happening, as the platform operates, there's a creator allocation of the fee activity, the revenue of the fees, that's going to be used to spice up the pot even further.
Yeah.
So right now it starts at 10K once this token launches. Could generate another 10, maybe 20. Who knows? If the spectacle truly captures enough attention and awareness and appreciation from the market, again, like people are enjoying the aspect of a 2-week-long contest for art creation, which is now appended to token launching, that could transpire in a credible market reaction. Who knows? But the point is to add in whatever that aggregate value of market activity into the extension of the pot. So 10K could be 50K. Who knows?
Yeah. So then how do we determine who wins, who gets selected?
Yeah.
It's going to be voted on by the token holders.
Correct. Yeah.
And the way that the votes are going to occur is that on the platform, there's this little number here that indicates your interactivity within the platform itself, right? This is called fame. And so it has a leaderboard. So the leaderboard here for fame is on the left side. And M. Boyley, he's got 938. So he's leading the pack right now.
Shout out M. Boyley, dude.
Yeah, so Matt here. So if M. Boyley is a token holder, then his weight is going to be 938 points in terms of votes.
I see.
So so it's not about how many tokens you're holding, it's about how much fame you have from the platform.
Right. So as long as you hold a token, then you have voting weight here as well. And if you have some fame.
Correct. Yeah, which if
Not-
you have
not
a
hard to
token,
get.
yeah, if you have a token, that means you have some fame.
That's true. Yeah, you get fame by essentially buying and selling things on NAT.FUN,
Right.
or how else? Or launching things, creating things. This is how fame is generated.
Yeah.
And the platform is obviously relatively new, very new. This is a few weeks old, so
Yeah.
nobody is truly dominating in the fame realm as of yet. Right?
Yeah, which is kind of what you want. Like, you don't want somebody to
Have too
acquire
much
a lot of
influence.
tokens and then have too much influence.
Like pure market control and dominance, which is kind of why you don't want to use the token as the weight device, at least not for this
Yeah.
specific use case, right? Because then you could just outbuy everybody and just influence the outcome.
Yeah. So here it is. So it finally fixed it. So now the shoes are actually connected to the body, and then you can see that all the shoes are fixed.
Right on, dude.
And so what's interesting here is that if you try to do this manually, it would take you forever because the body links are different links. And so you would have to manually position everything. And so it's just easier to tell the AI just to fix things and improve things. Like if you don't like this look, just tell it to do something different. Right. So
it's interesting. Yeah, I think you should add nips next, dude.
Nips.
they all look like they have like their nipples exposed. But there's no nips there. Maybe aliens don't have nips. Maybe that's what makes them non-human, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and literally you could just do that, right?
Yeah, if you wanted to.
As a trait. Like some have nips and others do not. And
that's a grail to me, dude.
yeah.
Dude, I got like an old head. Look at that. Go back.
This guy, yeah.
Are those, what are those, ears? Or
I think so. I think.
okay.
Yeah.
Just looks like a grandpa, dude. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So, oh, wow.
And so there's one interesting trait that I don't think I can find here, but
Probably not.
there's one
Damn.
there's one that has like a little animal kind of floating.
That one's got like a little orb there.
It's kind of like this, but it's an animal. It's like a dragon.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty
That
cool.
one's got a staff. Laser eyes.
Laser
Avi.
eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is going to be cool, right? This is what you came up with. And how long do you think it took you to vibe up this thing?
Not long at all. It was probably maybe 30 minutes worth of effort. And
Really? Wow.
and really, the amount of effort you put into vibing something is consistent with the output. So if you put in 30 minutes, the output is just going to be about 30 minutes worth.
Right. So the good news is you got 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, you got 2 weeks, yeah.
If you happen to, discover this contest on day one and you iterate from there. But definitely put in your max effort, and whether, credits like becomes a barrier, just remember what the stake is. 10,000 plus.
10,000 plus, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, you can use your own agent or use the onboard agent here. And so it does take credits, and there's a host of different AI tools that you could use. So this one is selected Haiku and GPT-5 Mini, but Opus is available. and then you can also generate images on the platform and do the vibe collection right on the platform itself. So you can kind of skip the making sure everything works part, right?
Yeah, so that's pretty much sums it up. There's a lot that's going into this for sure. And so we definitely want as much feedback as possible as you're iterating and using the platform's tools to put together your vibe. So definitely find us in our Discord to relay that information to us, that experience.
So as soon as you're watching this video, the token is live.
Yeah.
The only thing, part of the update for Meteora is that you can set a future date for the start of the minting process or the start of the swapping process in the DBC program. And so by the time you're watching this, if you're early enough, the token will be launched, but there will be a 60-minute kind of gap between the launch and the actual ability to purchase these tokens.
Right.
So once that timer is up, then you can actually swap in and see where this goes. And again, 10K up for grabs plus whatever this volume generates here.
Yeah, so just last thing we should probably look at is so what is the purpose of this token? It's, if it's launched as DMT, it's the representation of, digital matter theory.
Yeah.
And you can go to takedmt.com to kind
Oh,
of
yeah,
understand like what all that means, because as you know, people watching this probably already understand what DMT is. It's not the drug. It's a new digital substance protocol that operates on Bitcoin using inscriptions and such, but it's being translated onto other chains right now. That's kind of what NAT.FUN is bringing to the market. Meaning you could launch Solana assets that are anchored to patterns on Bitcoin to create non-arbitrary properties out of them. Right? That's what creates, supply dynamics that aren't, at the hands of human beings. It's governed by Bitcoin and, what's happening in that whole, environment backed by super thermodynamic security, right?
Yes, that's right.
That's the whole premise. That's what this whole thesis outlines. A lot of people are going to get exposed to this for the first time, right? Who haven't been paying attention to Bitcoin native stuff.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why we think, this event, this Vibeathon, this token needs to exist, right? Just to kind of properly relay the lore, the story, and the value of what's being cooked up in this ecosystem. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so have a read through this kind of website. I think it's beautifully designed, and it goes through the entire timeline of where DMT actually came from.
And it starts literally at the inception point of it all.
Of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so read through this, and yeah, so by the time you're done watching this video, head to NAT.FUN, look for the DMT token. There's going to be the first one. Hold on, let me see if I can bring it back. And let me go back to the graduated tokens here. So this is the old one. You don't want that one.
Yeah, I mean, you could if you want. Just
yeah,
because.
you could. Yeah, I mean, you can still get this token if you want.
Yeah.
But the Vibathon is going to be attached to a different DMT token.
Right. Which, again, the Vibe, we don't know what it's going to be. We hope you guys really put in max effort here, because we think that means something, right? To be forever associated as a creator of the DMT collection, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah. 10K is not bad either.
That's it. If you're just in it for the money, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're not in it for the vibe, you're just in it for the honeypot.
Yeah.
More power to you, dude. But you got to compete against this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. People have to vote for you.
Yeah, that's kind of fucked. You don't think, people might just vote for you? Because
no, I doubt it. I doubt it. My submission is going to be completely anonymous.
Oh, shit. Okay, good idea, dude. That's
because I don't want to influence this at all, and I don't think I'll win anyways. And if I do, I'm not going to keep the 10K.
What do you mean? What are you going to do with it?
I'm going to give it away, I guess.
Send it to Elon? Just buy SpaceX? Fuck it. Dude.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
All right, that's it for us. If you have any questions, let us know in the comment section below, and let's see what you submit. I'm kind of curious, and appreciate you for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.
Peace.